All right, so we love. Funny, sorry. We had some minor technical difficulties with me sending out invites that contained a Teams link and Lisa clicking on that instead of the link to the Streamlabs thing that we use. So apologies about that.
We're both humans and we're both the weakest link in today's episode.
So yeah, apologies about that. But yeah, a big welcome to everyone. Great to be back doing this again, another month, another bunch of things to talk about. I don't know if we're going to do one next month. You maybe want to explain why, Lisa?
Well, I don't know. Possibly. So I was meant to be going to Peru next weekend, a week on Friday. And today I woke up and in the news, Peru has declared a state of emergency because a volcano has erupted.
Oh.
So it's very much possibly. So maybe next month I'll be coming to you from Lima, or maybe also Bristol. Who knows? I could be anywhere.
Well, fingers crossed. Obviously, it's not great, and I hope everyone's safe there. But yeah, hopefully you will be able to make your trip. Because, I mean, it's nothing. You're going for a little walk up a hill, aren't you?
Yeah, totally all it is. I think it's like in the south of the country, but I think the concern is more that like planes don't really like ash. Yeah. And so therefore possibly you might not be able to fly in. And South America is a really big place. So initially I thought, oh, it's fine. I'll fly into another country in South America. I'll get a train or something. Yeah, that's not a thing. That's not a doable. That would be my entire trip, would be getting the train. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I guess I just have to see what happens. If KLM cancel my flight, then I'm not going. And if they don't, I am.
That's promising. So fingers crossed. We shall find out in a week's time. So I wish all the best.
Yeah. I'll tune in from somewhere in the world in a month's time.
Yeah. If not, you can come to Ben Nevis or something up in Scotland.
Thanks. That's such a consolation prize.
Well, anyway, yeah. So we had a few topics that we had lined up. Just trying to get them quickly. Yeah, I lost them on there. So I have to look at my phone because I had Signal on my computer and Signal around got outdated and it syncs messages, don't sync and all that. So first one on the list, anonymous Sudan and Killnet DDoS attacks.
Yes.
And how AS claimed they breached Microsoft. Oh, wow. Surprise, surprise. Some criminal group makes a large claim, probably when that doesn't happen. So do you want to talk about this one? Because this is kind of your topic that you raised, and I know nothing about it.
Well, I think there's some interesting spin-offs from it that I'm hoping we can discuss. But essentially, the crux of it was Killnet are a Russian hacktivist, I suppose you could call them, hacktivist group, whose typical MO has been to launch, in my opinion, pretty successful, pretty devastating DDoS attacks. They haven't typically done anything that wasn't in the DDoS realm. And it's typically been targeted at the organizations that you'd imagine it to be targeted to, that are going to have sort of mass, I suppose, coverage or whatever. Anonymous Sudan are a sort of spin-off anonymous collective that are allegedly based in Sudan, who have very tight connections to Killnet. The nature of whether they are in fact Sudanese or whether they're Russian, as you can probably tell, no one really knows. It's very much, someone wrote the other day that they'd written something in Russian, and I was like, yeah, but everyone can write something in Russian because there's Google Translate. So it does not, I don't feel if that's conclusive proof we've reached kind of, I'm not sure.
I mean, people can't speak languages out more than the country that they're in, right? People aren't
Exactly. That's like
multilingual.
hardcore proof. So who knows what the link is? But the fact was that essentially they sort of joined forces, and they, along with Our Evil, who are a ransomware group, they launched this absolutely hilarious, terrible video that you may have seen, which was threatening European financial institutions and saying that essentially, if they took them down, that would end support for the war in Ukraine, or support from the perspective of supporting Ukraine. And that would be the end of that, basically. And they released this video, which, if you haven't seen it, it's somewhere on my Twitter. I'll try and repost it, but it's the funniest thing you will watch, hands down, today. It's just edited so badly.
Sounds
And there's
like
a lot of "we are Killnet" kind of thing in it. But anyway, that aside, they then launched this thread and they said, we're going to target European financial institutions. And they targeted the European Investment Bank, and they actually did take their website offline. And then there were lots of things saying that the attack on Microsoft had been done by Killnet and Anonymous Sudan. And now Anonymous Sudan is saying, oh, not only did we DDoS all these people, we've actually stolen data, which actually deviates quite substantially from their typical MO, which was DDoS attacks. So that's the sort of crux of the issue. But I think the really interesting debate that perhaps we can have is that when these things happened, a lot of the cybersecurity community sort of jumped on it and said, well, DDoS attacks are nothing. They're nothing to worry about. Like, just ignore it. It's just funny. And I have my opinion, which I have voiced very publicly, as usual. But I'm going to pass over to you to see what your opinion on that kind of side of things is.
So DDoS attacks are really obviously very disruptive. Obviously designed to be very disruptive and incredibly hard to stop. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have with them is you need to allow legitimate traffic through, and especially if you're a public service, you have to allow the entire internet basically. And how do you stop these things? I know some of the DDoS use bots and that, so they're actually even from legitimate IPs, just compromised devices. I guess where the industry is like, yeah, they're not really attacks, is along the lines of it's not very technical in terms of just basically throwing a bunch of traffic at a site. And in fact, you can go sign up to services that do this. So literally someone with zero technical capabilities signs up to a service, obviously illegal, and can suddenly flood a site. So from that perspective, I think it is where the industry is, and I kind of agree with it. The other thing is I think the media also sensationalizes it. So they like seem, wow, these ninjas, these like super advanced people, when in reality it's not that. It's not advanced unless you're really talking about compromising millions of devices in the botnet scheme. That's probably the more advanced parts. But actually just flooding a service is not much. And depending on the service, sometimes I've seen it. I've been able to do it. Part of company test, just making sure everyone knows I'm not out there just flooding the internet. It doesn't take much to bring down a service. Like you can do it with like a single EC2 instance or a laptop. So if you have multiple of these or spin up a few VMs, you can significantly impact a site. And that's just, there's not much technical skill in that. So from that angle, I think, yeah, when the media you know what I mean? I can't pronounce for some reason now. But like makes it all glorified in that they get the publicity, and yeah, it just enhances what they're trying to do.
Yeah. I think it very much depends on the company, because I think ultimately, if you're running a website that is essentially by all means a blog, yes, it's inconvenient for it to be down, but ultimately you're not really losing a lot of money. You haven't got client services impacted. If you're running an investment platform and people are making trades in real time and that goes down, well, that's a really serious problem. In a matter of about 20 minutes, you're in big trouble. So I think the gravity of it very much depends on the organization, the industry, but also the time of year. For example, Amazon, if you took Amazon's commercial shopping site offline at Christmas, that would be disastrous. Other times of the year, bad, but not as bad, right?
Mhm.
So I think a lot of it depends on that. And I think, like you said, it's the problem with it is that it's not sexy because it's not that sophisticated for the most part. I mean, the Mirai botnet was pretty cool. It
Yeah.
had it was pretty amazing what they achieved. However, it's not particularly sophisticated. And ultimately there's not a lot you can do about it. Like you said, like it is what it is. I mean, you've got to have sort of resilience plans in place for what happens if that's inaccessible, but ultimately there's not much else you can hugely do. And I think actually testing your capability in that field is quite difficult as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's an interesting point, but I think you got to be a bit careful when you start saying that it's nothing, because it very much depends on the company.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. So I do online gaming, and there was a time where Lizard Squad was targeting Microsoft and Xbox, and it was actually also around Christmas time, and it definitely had an impact, not just on the company, but on people. Like I was impacted. Yeah, it's not a big thing, but if you imagine, like you've just bought a kid the Xbox for Christmas, like, hey, Joyce, oh, I can't use it now because you can't log on to the service and use the service. Um, yes, it's not a big thing, but it still has an impact on people and their own personal lives. So yeah, it's quite kind of one of those weird ones where technically it's not great, and technically it's not like wow, but it's also it does have a can have a significant impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one of the things we've got to be very aware of here is that they are very active. They have a lot of power to pull this off. They do pull it off, and they are very good at knowing what to target. So I think from a perspective of defense and from our side of the fence, we need to all be very aware of who they might go after, why, and on some level be understanding, like you said, in the media, but also I think we all just need to be a little bit more aware of what's going on geopolitically. Instead of just thinking about the sexy attacks, they've had a lot of success. They really have had a lot of success, and that ought to worry us a little bit.
Yeah, definitely, totally agree. And sometimes it's the more boring stuff that actually matters the most and
Mm-hmm.
hits us the hardest. Attackers aren't going to go throw 0 days like confetti, although they seem to be doing quite a bit of it at the moment. I don't know why, but generally they're not going to throw around 0 days like confetti. They'll keep those under wraps and use them like on a really special occasion. Things like DDoS
Birthdays and
or
Christmas.
yeah, exactly. Maybe Putin's or Kim Jong Young their birthday or something. Um, who knows? We shall see. So yeah. Any more on that one, or move on
No,
to
but I think the 0 day thing links quite nicely into the move IT topic.
uh, the move it? Yeah,
Yeah.
that one was pretty interesting. You want to give an overview of what happened there?
Yeah. So I think maybe mid-May, I'm going to say like the 27th of May or 24th of May, somewhere around that time. It was disclosed that a vulnerability in this piece of software had been exploited by a 0 day, which I think had something to do, and I correct me if I'm wrong, with some sort of SQL injection. It
Yep.
wasn't massively sophisticated. It's not the most sophisticated situation we've ever seen. But the issue was that this piece of software is so heavily relied upon. There's a lot of dependency on it across the board. So there's thousands and thousands of organizations that use it. And the complicating factor was twofold, really. One, the attackers claimed they'd been in the network for a long time, I think a couple of years. That's disputed, but plausible, in my opinion. The second issue was that there was some evidence that they knew about the vulnerability and hadn't done anything about it, Shocker. And the third issue was that you had basically an issue where you had several tiers of supply chain getting involved. So the way this is perfectly manifested is the Zealous situation. So Zealous is a company that provides payroll services. Zealous used this Move IT software to do whatever it is they were doing. That got compromised. All of the payroll software that all the payroll data that Zealous managed got compromised as a result of it. And they manage the payroll data for BBC, Boots, British Airways, Aer Lingus. I mean, literally the who's who of big companies, basically. So these big companies are suddenly thrown into absolute hell through basically no fault of their own, because it was a second tier down supplier that had the issue. And all their employee data was gone. Now, when you actually look at the data that was taken, my personal opinion is it's not massively high risk. Bank account details were taken. However, that in and of itself doesn't allow you to do an awful lot. If you don't have like a copy of a passport or a bill and other stuff, you still won't pass KYC checks, so know your customer checks. So I don't think it was a massive risk. However, they had really traumatized employees. It was all over the news. And this has replicated itself many times. And experts are saying that there's 20 plus million victims right now.
Yeah, it certainly was an interesting one. And especially with the names like BA in there, who, have BA ever been in the breach? Right, they have.
I do think they handled this one very well, though. They were very proactive.
At least they did.
They're very proactive, and they very much got straight on it and helped their employees, which was great. Good. And I think it's an interesting topic, because we talk about supply chain management, but when we do so, we're usually talking about one tier down. We're usually talking about suppliers who immediately and directly feed into your ecosystem. We're not talking about the second removed tier, who supplies the suppliers, essentially. And that's what happened here. And yet we've had, Sony, EY, PwC, all of these companies, the Department for Education in New York, all of these have gone down, have lost data.
Yeah, I think it's still part. This is where your supplier checks. I forgot the word. There's some word I was.
Due diligence.
That's the word. Needs to come into it. You need to start asking these really hard questions of how do you manage vulnerabilities? What's your security program look like? What's your vulnerability management program look like? What happens in an incident? All these types of questions, because unfortunately, these types of things are just going to become more and more of a thing. I don't think this is the first time we're going to see something like this. And I don't even think it was the first time that we've seen something like this. So it is something that we need to make sure that people stay on top of, and ask those hard questions, and do assessments and periodic ones. Don't just go, okay, well, we're onboarding a supplier. That's it. You need to do it like on an annual basis. And don't just, as you say, do the supplier, but also see how they handle their own suppliers.
Yeah, and I think the financial services sector is really interesting here, because I work not exclusively in financial services, but largely in financial services. And in the EU, we've got DORA, which is a new regulation that's coming out. I think it has to be implemented in January 2025-ish. I can't remember exactly. And that's going to be looking at supply chain management as well as other things relating to operational resilience. And the FCA are doing similar things in the UK. But what's really interesting is that the financial services sector had a really, really big scare in January this year. And I don't know if any of you remember, but Ion Markets was a company, a derivatives trading company, that got hit with ransomware in January this year, went down. And the net effect of that company going down was so enormous, I can't even articulate. It literally crashed every single trading company that fed into that company. They all used it, and nothing could happen. And it was an absolute disaster. And what regulators realized was, oh my God, the financial services industry, we are so dependent on literally a handful of suppliers that if they go down, like it could really shake the economic stability of an entire country potentially if it was bad enough. And so they panicked, and then they started putting in all of these operational resilience requirements in financial services, which is kind of where I come in my area of interest. But ultimately, I think over all industries, we have become very reliant on certain suppliers. I mean, AWS, who doesn't use AWS? I mean, you know, if you look at some of the main suppliers, and yes, it's very unlikely, we hope, that they would be taken offline. But if they were, what would happen?
But they're good. Or not even taken offline. Things happen. We had what US East 1 or 2, I forgot which region it was, not so long ago. That went down. Half the internet went down. Thankfully, it didn't last too long, but it's still impact to your company, your operations.
Yeah.
Some companies have SLAs, so there's a potential financial impact from that as well. Yeah, so very much so. It's kind of on the realms of almost, is this critical infrastructure? Kind of start questioning that, because yeah, these things go down, as you say, they could actually even have a significant impact on the economy itself.
Yeah. And I think that's what we all have to start realizing a little bit more with the suppliers that we use, regardless of the size of the company. What happens if that supplier cannot provide the service that they provide? And what would that do to your company? Would it just be data loss? Would it just be data loss, I say, you know, or would your entire business basically grind to a halt? And if it's the latter, probably you want to be building in some resilience into that, because you're too dependent on one company.
That actually raises an interesting point. Like, when you reviewing suppliers, don't treat them all equal. It's very much of what are they doing, what data they're handling, where they're handling it. Like, you'll have the crown jewels, and suppliers have those. So those are the suppliers that you would really put on the top and do a thorough due diligence. Whereas if some employees installing some, I don't know, random word processing or utility on their endpoint, you're probably not going to go through a full end-to-end review and process check of all of that. So you'd probably place that way down and only do the checks that are appropriate for that. So that's something else to consider. Don't treat all suppliers the same.
Yeah, and I think the other mistake that I see happen a lot is we talk a lot about critical data, and we talk about, oh, well, that's personal information, or that's whatever, financial information, and therefore that's really critical and we need to protect that. Totally correct. But what I see people miss is, what are the business critical services? So what are the things, the functions of your business that without those things up and running, you cannot do business? Forget data, forget that kind of, you know, the CIA type thing. Just purely think about being able to do business and operate. And those also need to be treated with the same level of criticality as that data set.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much wisdom on this podcast tonight.
We hope.
After we click the wrong link.
Yeah. Send out a Teams meeting instead of, yeah. Joys of technology, right?
Yeah.
We all get it wrong. All right. So the next one, I think, kind of touched on this in the first topic. So you're coming on about getting involved in hacktivism, especially in the Russian-Ukraine war. I mean, we're all war experts, aren't we?
I thought we were submersible experts. Then we were war experts, and now I think we're investment and interest rate experts. I can't remember what we are now.
I don't know. I'm not an expert on anything. There we go.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, though, because I studied international law at university, and it's the question of, from the other side of the fence, when we say, okay, well, this group is a Russian hacktivist group, for example, it's actually under international law almost impossible to prove that they are Russian, other than unless we knew their physical nationality, we could say they were Russian. But they're not controlled necessarily by the Russian state. And actually, under international law, what's really interesting is the level of control you have to exert is enormous. So we saw, this is all going to bore you. I'm going to go down a legal rabbit hole here for 2 seconds. So just, have a drink. It will end, I promise. In the International Court of Justice heard a case that was the United States versus Nicaragua. And in that case, the United States...
Oh, sorry.
Did? That was incredibly powerful. I wasn't quite expecting you to literally silence me.
Like it was the AR running in the background. That's what it was. Entirely the AR.
Yeah, that's what it was. I'm still going to carry on, so whatever. So in this case, the United States basically had sent people to go and train the Contras in Nicaragua, and they'd sent guns and they'd sent money and they'd sent people to train them. And the court held that that still wasn't enough to say that the US were involved in this conflict. So it goes to show that really you can't prove that even Wagner Group are in any ways associated to the Russian government at a legal level. That said, I do think that cyber people, and I've heard of a number now, who have got involved in hacktivist activity from a pro-Ukrainian side. And I do think we have to exercise a little bit of caution here, because we have laws in the United Kingdom and they don't permit you to do this. They don't say, well, if you thought it was all right and for a good cause, you can go and hack any. Like, that's not the law. That's not the Computer Misuse Act, right?
Yep.
And I do think it's very tempting. It's very tempting, and that line gets very blurred very quickly. But my personal viewpoint on it is you need to be very, very careful, because this could be career ending.
Yeah. I mean, you're entirely right. Like, regardless of the motivation behind it, the law is pretty clear. If you do this, you will have potentially a criminal record. And if that's the case, especially because I think many people, especially young people, don't actually realize what a criminal record means. In the UK, we largely a services-based country, so we have a lot of financial, for example, being a really large part of jobs, and even security is you like working for a fintech, or heck, I work for a fintech organization, or you work for a bank or something like that, and that all require you to do background checks. And if you have a criminal record, you're probably going to struggle to get a job. So it can have a significant impact on your career. Not to mention the stress of going through a trial and all of that kind of stuff.
And I think you've also got to be careful, because you don't necessarily know who you're working with or alongside.
Yep.
And I'm not sure you necessarily understand the consequences of your actions. And those consequences, if severe enough, could even bring NATO into conflict with Russia. And I think you have to be very careful what you do, because you don't understand the nuances of the political debate between the countries either. And my personal opinion, and maybe there'll be loads of people on here who disagree, is that actually I think that's crossing a line that you can't necessarily step back across.
Yeah. And let's also face it, like Russia has in the past done some things to people, like bad things outside of Russia.
No.
Like tourists visiting a cathedral. Yeah, those guys. But it is a really important point to make. Like, thankfully, I don't think we've seen anything yet. But if you do cause significant damage, like, they won't think twice about sending some visitors over to do some harmful things to you. Likelihood of that's probably going to be low, but still, there's still a very strong possibility that could happen. I mean, after all, we're dealing with let's just say countries who don't have the best reputation coming to like things like human rights and that kind of stuff. So tread very, very, very carefully.
Yeah, because I don't think you can necessarily always appreciate the consequences of your actions 2 or 3 steps further on.
Yeah.
You can see the immediate impact and you think, oh, that's cool. You don't know what sort of dominoes that's gonna flick over, and then the consequences of that.
My advice: if you do want to help, don't do the red attack stuff. Try help defend.
Yeah.
That way you'll be in a much better position. You'll still be helping, and you'll still be helping the efforts, the Ukrainian effort, and their
Totally.
side. Yeah, well, yeah, hopefully, and you'll be doing a good job, and it will be a lot harder to have anything thrown against you, especially in like the court of law and that. So if you do want to help from a cyber point of view, my advice: go defend. Less glamorous, but a lot safer.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So on to the next exciting topic.
Oh no, you're smiling. What is it? Please don't say it's crypto. It's crypto.
I'm
isn't it?
thinking whether it's no, it's not cryptocurrency. So the online safety bill.
Oh no, that's almost worse. No, I wish it was crypto.
The online safety bill. I wish they'd just drop it. So those who don't know, the UK government, and it's not just the UK government, but the UK government seems to be the one that's spearing it on at the moment. Other countries like Australia, US, basically like the Five Eyes are toying with this. I think even the EU to an extent as well. They would essentially want to put, some people term it backdoors, if it is a backdoor, but what they want is a way for companies to be able to view information in end-to-end encryption. And this is incredibly dangerous. I've written a whole blog post about that. So if you're interested, you can go find it, or bore yourself to death reading it. But the important thing is this essentially breaks our end-to-end encryption. And I think often people think end-to-end encryption is things like your mobile app to like Signal or WhatsApp. Essentially, any HTTPS is still end-to-end encryption. You got encryption between your client and encryption on your server. So this covers things like your online banking. Now, if we have a way of breaking that encryption, it's incredibly dangerous, because now you will have bad people targeting your online accounts or your utility bills and. I think this is heading down a very dangerous path. And those who aren't, well, I'll kind of maybe show my age, but back in the 90s and the early 2000s, the US government had their export cipher suites and all basically TLS connection, or back then SSL connections. And these cipher suites were enforced on connections outside of the US. So if you wanted to establish a connection from the US to, say, even the UK, I think it was the UK. I don't know if it was select countries or not, but anyway, you had to use these what was called the export cipher suites. And those were weaker cipher suites that the NSA could crack and then view the data traveling across outside the US. Do you think we still use them today? Question for you, Lisa. Do you think we still use them today?
I don't know. I don't have enough alcohol in my house to know the answer, I don't think. I'm not prepared.
No, because they're broken. They're weak. They get exploited. And that's why, like, it just boggles my mind. We're kind of going down that same road again, where we knew there was security flaws, we knew there were weaknesses, and now we're going, oh, let's just do it again.
I think there was another element of it. Now, I don't know if this has been dropped from the bill that's gone to the House of Lords, but there was also an element to it that concerned me further, which was that they were requiring platforms to proactively scan messages between users for content that was concerning, right? which again, obviously, is about, not having proper end-to-end encryption, so that you can do that. And the problem that I have with this is twofold. Firstly, that it's not going to stop anything, because criminals, they're probably not using WhatsApp and Signal.
Yeah.
To be honest, the real people that you want are smarter than that. They're using other stuff, which isn't going to be caught by this bill anyway. If they are using it, they'll just pivot. They'll figure a way out to do it in a way that you still can't access. Which means that the only people who really have their privacy violated are the people who are not doing all the bad stuff.
Or really, really stupid criminals.
And really, really stupid criminals who are probably, But the main thing is, and this might come across initially a little bit idealistic, but it's a hallmark of a free and democratic society that proving that someone did a crime is supposed to be hard. It has to be hard for the police to prove you did a crime, because if you isn't, you are living in a country where they don't need proof of anything. They can just do whatever they want to find that you've done something. That's not how we want to live in the UK or Europe, or I presume the United States. And I think it's really dangerous, because I think you've seen countries who have removed rights from their citizens, and their citizens have spent generations fighting to get those rights back. And this is where we're at. And my big concern here is that actually this is a cyber fight. This is an information security, a data privacy community fight. This is our fight and our time to get really loud about it and say, no, this is not okay. Because we are the people who essentially know what this means. And the sort of people in our communities who don't understand it are looking to either us or the government to guide them on what's best. And I personally feel this is a sneaky way at harvesting large quantities of data.
Yeah, I saw a really, really, really worrying statistic, and I think it was today I read it, and that's to next point there. But think of the children. So it sounds funny, but this is literally what they are doing. They're getting charities involved in this, and the charities don't have any sort of concept of the technical ramifications of this. In fact, I think it will harm children far more. So you're going to have children's messages that are open to potentially viewing, not just by government, but by people who have found ways to break into these things. And I think it's just a recipe for disaster. But one of the things that I saw in the stats was like 73% of the participants in the survey support this. And that, to me, was incredibly worrying, because we have the larger public out there that think this is a great idea, and they obviously don't fully understand what it means. And unfortunately, I think a lot of these charities have a lot of voice, especially in government, that we do. And they continue, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying they're having their own agenda. They're certainly trying to do the best for children, but they don't fully understand what it is they are asking for. And in some sense, maybe not even willing to understand and listen to the cybersecurity people who know better, and fully understand what it actually really means.
And I think a big shout out here to Professor Alan Woodward, who I think has just been amazing in driving this fight, and he's really promoted it. Go check out his Twitter if you haven't already done so, and see the stuff that he's done together, along with the British Computer Society, who have put things together as well. And it's really important, I think, if you're in the UK, get stuck in, get involved, start signing petitions, start talking about it, start making some noise. Even if you're not in the UK, start sharing those posts, start sharing that kind of narrative, because A, we really appreciate it if you would, and B, don't think that if this passes in the UK, it's not coming to a country near you soon, because it will. So it's in everyone's interests to shut this down.
I think this is a litmus test. If this passes, then other countries are going to go, oh, okay, well, they've done it, so we're going to do it.
Totally.
So yeah, I think this is a very, very, very probably one of the most important bills in the history of cybersecurity, or at least the most recent history of cybersecurity, because it could really shape the way that we go. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we had things like export software suites. We don't want that again. That was terrible. And this is just terrible on so many levels. Yeah. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll see some sense. We
Yeah, I
shall
think
wait and see.
the House of Lords can sometimes be really problematic for the government. And that's one of the benefits of a bicameral system like we have in the UK. You have a second house that has to review legislation. It's not just the government deciding and passing it. So there is an opportunity here to make some noise. But I do think if we sit back, we will regret it.
Yep, I entirely agree. So, next topic, awards.
Oh no, this is getting worse.
The industry awards, where I think, yeah. So I'll start and then let Lisa give her thoughts as well. But one of the things I've seen within the industry, awards are becoming a bigger and bigger thing. And I'm not saying like a lot of them aren't or are with merit, but another point of the awards that we've seen are based on votes rather than actually seeing what someone's done. And when it goes down that route, it becomes more of a popularity contest, like who has the biggest followers and all that kind of stuff. And that's not what we should be doing. It should be entirely based on merit, not how many followers that you have or how many likes you have and all that kind of thing. And what I think it does is it detracts from those who are actually putting in a lot of effort and doing a lot of the work, and maybe even demotivates them. I don't know. I'm not them. I don't do anything special, so I don't deserve any reward. Award, not reward, award. But yeah, it's something that I think actually can harm the efforts of those in the industry. And I think we need to be careful when we look at some of these awards. Ideally, what I think should happen is it should be totally blind in some sense and just look purely based on merits, not even have nominations. They go out, assess who's doing what, and no votes or anything like that. Because again, it's popularity. Who gets the most votes gets the award.
So I'm going to tell a little story. I won't name names, but I got contacted by an awards and they said, "Oh, Lisa, congratulations. You won this award." And I said, "Oh, okay, what's it for?" And they said, "Oh, it's for," I think it was something like advocate for mental health in the industry or something, right? And I said, "Oh, okay. How did I win this?" And they said, "Oh, just from all your work in sort of supporting mental health in the industry." And now, don't get me wrong, I think mental health is really important. But I don't do anything to support mental health. I do zero things. I look after my own mental health and I'm there for my friends and I support mental health initiatives by liking and sharing and saying, go do this. For, whether that's critical or not, I don't do anything at all. Zero things. And so I said, well, look, tell me what you think I've done to deserve this award over other people. And they said, "Oh, we've just seen you post about stuff and like you're very, supportive of it all." And I was like, I cannot, in all good faith, accept this award. So I turned them down. They no longer talk to me and blocked me on social media.
Oh my
But
gosh.
the
Wow.
point was that I honestly cannot stand up and say to people, "Look, I won this award for this." Like, that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. I don't deserve that award. I have done nothing to deserve that award. It is absolutely ridiculous to give me that award. You're not giving it to me because you think I have done this. You're giving it to me for other reasons, as you've already alluded. And here's the problem. There's so many people who will accept the award and go, "Oh, yes, awards." And it's like, but they haven't looked into you. I mean, I've won awards where I've thought, well, they haven't got client testimonials. They haven't looked at bank statements or tax returns. They haven't looked at anything I do. They can't cite a single thing for why I'm winning this award. You haven't won an award. You haven't won anything. You've just been named conveniently for a reason that a marketing company has decided. And that's not to say you don't do amazing work. And that's not to say that you don't deserve recognition. But my God, deserve recognition for what you've actually done. Don't don't take recognition for just nonsense. And this is where I think we have to change in the industry, because there's so many people who win award after award after award after award, and there are lots of deserving people. And I think we really all have to start asking questions and start saying, okay, I'm happy to celebrate whoever wins whatever award, but I would like to see the basis for that award being given. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of goes with my point where awards are just, some of them are more popularity contests, like who gets the most votes.
And as Nick
if you
has
have a
just said in the
larger
comments, some people pay for them or they nominate themselves. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's just it's ridiculous. It makes a mockery of the achievements that our industry has actually obtained. And I'm sorry to sound ranty, but I honestly just think it's ridiculous.
You're entirely correct. And what I think a lot of people also don't realize is many of those behind these awards, I don't know why I keep on thinking rewards, not but awards, are actually marketing PR companies.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not actually tech-based companies. They literally, people who are there bigging up things. I don't know what they gain out of it for doing it. I still haven't worked that angle. But yeah, they're largely marketing PR companies. Well, not saying all of them, but a large number of them are those companies. And
I will say this to people who are watching: if you ever see my name listed under any award, you have my permission right here, right now. You have my permission to write underneath that, I want to see how she won that award. For what? I won't be offended. Challenge it. And I wish we'd do this more. And I wish more people who are on these forever lists would say, go challenge it. Because I'm not afraid of my achievements. I will stand by my achievements. I don't necessarily think they are worthy of award winning all the time. But I wish people would do that more.
Yeah.
And it's not insulting, because if you look at other industry awards in other industries, they will name why. So one of my friends is a doctor, is a surgeon, and they had an award, and I was looking, she won an award, and I was looking through how they listed the people, and there were actual achievements, things they'd done next to their name as to why they were winning the award. And I'm like, why does this not happen in cyber?
Yep. And we've seen some awards where people won for things they don't even do. Like you've just mentioned, there's another award that where I think they won the best blogger award, and they didn't even have a blog, or they had like one post or something. It's like, seriously?
Oh God.
Yeah. And in full transparency, I did win an award this year, beginning of the year. I was hesitant of even accepting it. I just kind of went with it to see what it was all about. And the other thing about winning these awards is it changes nothing. You don't get any more money. You don't get a pay rise. You don't get anything. You might just get a little medal and a name on somewhere. So what you'll get far more recognition for is, as Lisa said, like stand up, stick to principles. Those kinds of things will take you a lot further. And it may not be immediate, but it will hopefully come down the line. And I always believe good things come to good people. Not saying those who accept the rewards of, I'm doing rewards again. Those who accept the awards aren't good people. They certainly are. But being a bigger person and admitting, like sometimes in Lisa's case, where you've not done anything and turning it down and then getting blocked as a result.
It happens quite regularly to me. But I think it's also not saying that if you get nominated for award, or anyone who's nominated for award hasn't done something worthy of that award.
Yep.
But if you have no problem with people saying, what did you do? Because actually, if you've done something worthy of an award, you want that known, because that's a real achievement. That's something you would like people to know you did, right? So I don't think if you have really achieved what they're saying you deserve to be recognized for, you would ever mind. I certainly wouldn't. I know you wouldn't. And like Ian just said, it's a popularity contest. And unfortunately, that's completely true, Ian. I think all it is they look through lists of people, who's got the most followers or whatever, let's nominate them for that, and they'll accept it, and then it's a vanity situation. But I do think we need to change, and I do think there are so many amazing people who need to be recognized who are not getting recognized because they're not massive names on Twitter, which is just crap.
Yep, totally agree. And to Lisa's point as well, for me, if I ever do win another award, which I don't think I will, and
I'm going to nominate you for top nuclear scientist in Europe and just see if we can get you to win it. We'll all vote for it and see if we can get him nominated.
100% safety record. What can I say?
And then everyone on LinkedIn will be kind of commenting, "Oh, well deserved, Sean. So well deserved."
Yeah, that's also something funny. Yeah, you don't need me near a nuclear site. I'm going to
find the award. I'm going to drop it into my Twitter. I'll pin it to the top of my Twitter. Everyone get on it and nominate him.
But yeah, if you see me getting for award similar to Lisa, ask me to justify it. No qualms. And yeah, there was actually one question I was going to ask you, and I was debating whether I would. Yeah, vacations are very important for mental health.
I work to live. I don't live to work.
Yeah.
Okay, so, what's the question? This is going to be bad.
It is a bit of a controversial one, but you're female, right? The industry is known for less females than males, right? Do you ever see that you kind of get these token awards where, oh, Lisa's a female, so therefore we're going to give her the award because we want to have better diversity or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I'm not under any illusions that at the very beginning of my career, where I was basically a nobody, people would invite me onto panels and to speak at conferences because they needed a woman. And I definitely took advantage of that because it was an opportunity for me to get ahead, which is, is what it is. I'll own that. But 100%. And I think also, even when you look at things like, and I don't, on principle, don't disagree with the principle behind it. But let's look at the honours list, right? The honours list from the UK, from the King, whatever. I don't even really know what you say it's from. I'm King. A bad British person. From the King. So the honours list from the King.
His Majesty.
His Majesty. Blah, blah. And I'm not disagreeing or commenting on who's on that list at all. I'm sure they're all deserving. Brilliant. Congratulations, all of them. But they had 51%, I think, women and 49% men, which seems like a very equal split for a situation where we know women are lacking at the top end of industry, and we know women are lacking and that's an issue that we have globally, right? The rest of the diversity on that list was also really, really lacking. It was very much looking like a very white woman to white man 50-50 split with a few other people in there. And again, I don't have a massive issue with it from the perspective of promoting women, but I think every single my viewpoint, I want to go up against Sean and I want to win. Not because I'm a woman, just because I'm better. That's what I want. That's like my, I don't want to have a different door opened for me. But
I don't want you to go against me because you will win. You're better.
I'll probably cheat, to be honest. I'd just cheat.
You beat me. I'll just sit there, eat my pineapple on pizza and just annoy you. Get back at you.
It will be poisoned. I'll have worked with the Russians and collaborated on some sort of poison.
Oh, jeez. That's why I've got dogs. They can test it out first.
That's not why you have dogs. To prevent your poisoning.
Nah, I love my dogs. They sniff it out. That's what they'll do.
Oh God, Dan's in here. I see Dan.
Yeah.
He
has access.
Here he goes. Cyber war. God.
But just one last point. Like, I mean, I can't speak because I'm not in the position, but my thoughts are like, if you do get nominated for those awards because you're a woman, does it not like detract from your kind of confidence in that because You're not actually getting
I
it
think it
for
depends. Like,
the
I've won
skin.
some awards where they've really dug into what I've done. They've asked for client
Mhm.
testimonials. In that situation, I feel like if I win it, it's on merit, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
I feel very frustrated when I get nominated either because I'm a woman or because I have a number of followers on Twitter. That really pisses me off
Yeah.
because it's insulting.
Yeah.
Really, you know, you haven't looked into anything I do.
It's
Like,
not about you. It's about them type thing. How can
and
they
that's
make
what I don't
themselves look
like
better?
because I
Yeah.
feel like it's selling people short, to be honest.
Yeah. I can totally see how that comes across. So yeah, no, but again, kudos to you. Good sticking to your morals and principles and
I
doing the
have
right
like 2
thing.
morals and I stick to them. It's
I think I
that
know
and
what one of them.
don't eat pineapple on
Do
pizza.
it. Damn it. And everyone let us down because we could have had you eating pineapple on
Yes!
pizza.
It was so close. And if for those of you who don't know, Sean said if I got over 50,000 followers on Twitter or whatever it was, that night I said, okay, fine, I'll eat pineapple on pizza. And what happened was basically a psyops operation because Sean definitely got Dan Card to start tweeting to follow me,
I
which he
didn't.
did. So don't worry, Dan, there will be retaliation. I haven't contemplated what I'm going to do for you yet. But I was going around messaging people, asking them to unfollow me really quickly.
Damn it.
And it was teetering. It was like 10 followers, 8 followers below the limit. And I was like, oh gosh, it was tense. See, Sean paid you to do it. Dan just commented. Screenshotting that.
I was having a look and you're still over 50,000. So I'm like, damn it. So I can't repeat it. See, if we had more people following you, we would have had you eating pineapple on pizza. I even brought in the flat earthers and they disappointed me completely.
Yeah, well, you lost and I'm not eating it and I won and I can sit here and gloat.
Oh well. I don't know what the comeback to that is, but anyway.
Better luck next time.
I know what the comeback is. I should have done it in B-Sides Leeds. Got a pineapple on pizza. Sit in the front row while you give your talk.
It would never have surprised me if you'd done that. I don't know what I'd have done. Probably violence. I would have done violence.
Kicking me out. Asking them to remove me from the premises because I've agitated the speaker. Yeah. No, it's been a good one this month. And as I said at the beginning, really hope you make your trip. Are you able to tell what you're doing there, or is that
Yeah,
under
so
wrap?
if it happens, big if at the moment, I am going to climb some 6,000-meter mountains in the Andes, which are like 20,000 feet if you're an American person. So yeah, really big. Got some cool ice axes lurking somewhere, which I thought I had out. But
Oh, those for me if I'm coming to your talk eating pizza in the front row.
I don't
Pizza.
think you would survive that, and I would almost definitely end up in jail. Funnily enough, when I was in B-Sides Leeds, all these people were coming up to me saying, oh, you didn't bring the ice axes. And I'm like, no, I didn't bring the ice axes. I can't just walk around on trains with 2 bloody ice picks. Like, it's probably a arrestable offense.
Probably. In the middle of summer, what do you do with the ice axe?
In Leeds. Like, it doesn't look good, does it, really?
Practicing my ice climbing on a tree or something. I don't know. But no, yeah, that sounds, I want to say awesome, but yeah, it's not like I couldn't do that. There's no way. But that's the stuff
It's
you love,
interesting
so that's
because
awesome.
it's the altitude makes it really difficult, and hopefully I get to go and I can show you the effects of it because I've bought a pulse oximeter to bring with me, so I can show what actually happens to your oxygen saturation in your body as you go up high, and how basically, essentially, you'd be hospitalized at sea level if you went into a hospital showing those results.
Yeah.
So a lot of weird things happen. I'm hoping I can go and I can show you the world above 20,000 meters, 20,000 feet. We'll see. Fingers crossed, but we'll see.
fingers crossed, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone. We wish you a very safe journey and trip up the mountain. Please look after yourself.
A
We
little bit,
want
like
happy
slight injuries,
Lisa
okay.
back, limbs intact, everything intact, even aspects
Partially intact will be sufficient. It all heals eventually.
Yeah. I think so, but yeah.
This won't age well if I die. If I die,
Please
if I
don't
die on
do
the
that.
mountain,
Please.
this part of the video will not age well.
No, it's just, yeah, I've been watching a few documentaries about Everest, and it's kind of scary. Well,
Yeah.
not kind of, it is very scary. And yeah, so seriously, please look after yourself. And we wish you a very safe trip. I will be stuck my firm behind on ground because I don't do heights. So I will be thinking of you, not wanting to be anywhere near there. So yeah.
Please don't die. We have an award for you.
I was thinking of that. I think we can have the Mountain Goat Award.
There we go. Most mines conquered by a cybersecurity professional. That would also be mine, but that would be justified, so it's fine. It's not a problem.
Yeah. So that concludes another month. And yeah, next month we'll see if you're able to join from
Peru. Yes, I will.
Peru.
Hopefully, I'll be in somewhere in Peru. I mean, I would say it would be ambitious and fun to try it from the satellite phone, but I think that would be asking for absolute disaster. So I think it will probably have to be when I'm in Huaraz, which is the town nearest to the Andes. But yeah, I think from satellite phone might be ambitious.
Yeah, just a little bit. But no. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and all the interesting comments. And yeah, we'll hopefully have Lisa joining from Peru next month.
Yes.
Have a good one, all.
Bye.
Catch you later. Bye.